Professor P.M.G.Nambissan from Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics, Kottayam. Professor Nambissan is currently holding the Professor Chief position and is an active researcher in the area of positron annihilation spectroscopy for the past 25 years. He has done his BSc in Physics from Calicut University in Physics, followed by MSc in Physics from the Calicut University Center in Nuclear Physics in the year 1986, and then he went to the post-MSc Associate Diploma in Physics at Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics, Kottayam, with specialization in nuclear physics. He has completed his PhD in the year 1991 for the thesis project entitled Positron Annihilation and Scanning Electron Microscopy Studies on alpha irradiated tantalum, tungsten, molybdenum, and aluminum samples at Saha Institute of Nuclear Physics. So his contributions in the area of positron annihilation spectroscopy is immense. And as I told you yesterday, apart from his scientific research interests, he has a very good music mind, and he is a voracious reader, and of course he is a writer as well. So he is very much keen in popularizing science. And today's talk, as he promised yesterday, he will not touch upon positron annihilation spectroscopy at all. And he is going to talk about today the ancient legacy of evolution of science. So in this short introduction, I would like to invite Professor P.M.G.Nambissan to deliver his introduction.
A very good afternoon to all of you. Namaskar. And thank you. Thank you, Professor Nandumar, for the very nice introduction. Before starting my lecture, I was just trying to find out whether the number of audience is smaller, equal to, or larger than what it was yesterday. I think maybe it is slightly larger. So that is a consideration, of course. Now, my dear friends, as I was telling you yesterday, and as Professor Nandakumar already announced today, today's lecture will be somewhat different from a conventional seminar. Because in a conventional seminar, we speak about a particular area of research and we present the results of important investigations that we have been doing in our laboratory. And then, of course, what we can do in future. And then, of course, we summarize the important results, acknowledge our causes, and then end with a thank you. Today's lecture is actually a different kind of lecture. Actually, my purpose of visit to Mahatma Gandhi University was over by yesterday itself, because I delivered a scientific seminar. But then I thought I will stay for one more day and give a general lecture. Now, I will tell you something about the background of this particular lecture. In the year 2009, I was at Kannur University on a one-year deputation as the course director for the Department of Nanoscience. Of course, my mission was never accomplished. It was a total failure. So I went back after 1 year to my parent institution. That's a different story. But incidentally, it also happened that the year 2009 was the International Year of Science, Antarashtra Shastra Varsha. It was actually declared as International Science by the United Nations Organization to commemorate the 600th anniversary of Galileo's investigation of the celestial objects and especially his discovery of the planet Saturn. Now, that year, it also generated a lot of enthusiasm in Kerala. Unfortunately, I had to be in Kerala during that year. So I was actually very much involved with the Science Park in Kannur. if any of you belong to Kattu, or if any of you happen to come to Kattu, please visit the Science Park. The then director of Science Park, but he spotted upon me, and he invited me and asked me whether you can say something about your research and whether about the currently trends in research to our students. And their students are actually students of the primary school, the secondary school, maybe up to plus 2. Now, initially I was a little bit awestruck because what a person who has spent more than 2 decades in a scientific research institution inside a laboratory can speak to the young generation of students. So with a lot of hesitation, one day I stood in front of these young children and started talking to them about what is happening in the field of science. But the type of enthusiasm that it generated and the type of response I got from the school children really stimulated my passion for popularizing science. I thought that here we have young minds which are not at all corrupted by politics, films, or anything that the modern day technology has offered. But they have really a sublime mind to capture new ideas and to work on it and come out with some new lines of thinking. So that stimulated me, and then I decided that I will try to give this lecture. But what happened is that again, fortunately, when I gave the lecture in one school, there were some teachers of neighboring schools, so they also invited me, and then again I got some invitations, and by that 1 year I actually visited educational institutions starting from primary schools. I mean, a school which is having classes from class 1 to class 4, from primary school to the Department of Physics of Kochi University of Science and Technology. I delivered about 62 lectures. I mean, I delivered lectures at 62 places. It is there in my biodata now. So then that gave me an idea that probably we can do something more than just doing measurements in the laboratory and publishing papers. We can also talk to young minds and stimulate their passion for understanding science. Incidentally, you should also understand one thing, that of late, incidentally, there is also a tendency of late for the students to go in bulk in number to engineering, medicine, and then of course IT, BT, and NT, information technology, biotechnology, and nanotechnology. But what is happening is that most of the research institutions, I don't know what is the situation about MG University here, but especially in Bengal and the other parts of North India, what is happening is the number of students coming for the fundamental areas of sciences like physics, chemistry, biology, mathematics, etc. are creating. And quite often, even in our institute, I mean, I am sorry to say, the standard of the students who are coming actually for research is a little bit low. I mean, those who are getting very good marks, they are going for engineering or medicine. And then students for opportunities in some professional colleges. And finally, the students who are applying for doing PhD are those students who are getting maybe just 50%, 60% marks. So this has really degraded the quality of the PhDs. And students also, on the average, take more than 6 to 7 years to complete their PhD. I finished my PhD work within 3.5 years, and within 1 year I got my PhD. But that kind of a momentum is certainly lacking in the present generation of students. And then I started wondering what is actually going wrong. Why can't we catch them young? That was my idea. So in this lecture, what I am going to tell you is how science evolved, not only in India, how science evolved from the time of the ancient Homo sapien, and what science can offer to mankind, and how we should nurture science. And then, of course, I will focus upon India, because India has got a tradition of encouraging scientific minds. Of course, there have been drawbacks. You may be knowing that there was one scientist, Bruno, who actually proposed a new theory about the planetary motion, but he was burnt. You know, that in the highly orthodox religious texts, they could not assimilate the new thoughts. So he was put in fire and he was brutally burned. Galileo was under house arrest for a long time. And what not, even in India, there were certain sages called Charvakas, who are basically atheists, but even they were actually made to suffer quite a lot. So, independent thinking always faced opposition from the conservative minds. But of course, the situation has changed quite a lot. Today we have the modern science and technology, and society is also more open in nature. Although there are stray incidences here and there, but still we have a better opportunity today. And we don't have to face such strict oppositions from the conservative minds. We still have a more liberal society around. So we can, so circumstances, the environment is very congenial for independent thinking and scientific pursuit. But unfortunately, as I said, the number of students who are coming to the science stream is dwindling. So somehow this tendency has to be stopped. And we should actually bring more minds to the scientific. And I am glad to see so many students are now here. In our institute, I will tell you, don't quote me outside. Even in our institute, if we arrange a seminar, the number of participants will be 10, 15, and if it is 20, it is an extra. And whereas I am very happy to see so many students and faculties and members, the house is almost full. Thank you very much for coming to this lecture. In spite of the fact that I already gave you an overdose of lecture yesterday. And so let us start. Incidentally, I also delivered this lecture in Calcutta at a few places. And once in Kerala, I also delivered this same lecture in a meeting of the Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. Everywhere, of course, people like this lecture, so I hope you will also like this lecture. So let us start. പിന്നെ ആ ഫ്രണ്ട്സ് വന്നു അല്ല ഞാൻ ചോദിക്കുന്നത് മലയാളത്തിൽ സംസാരിക്കാൻ പറ്റുമോ രണ്ട് സുഹൃത്തുക്കളുണ്ട് അവർ എല്ലാവർക്കും മലയാളം അറിയാമല്ലോ. ഞാൻ പറയാത്ത മലയാളത്തിനോട് സംസാരിക്കില്ല. പക്ഷേ മലയാളം അറിയാത്തവർ ആരെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ക്ഷമിക്കണം. ഇല്ല എന്നോട് പറഞ്ഞില്ലെങ്കിൽ ഞാൻ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് പറഞ്ഞുതരാൻ തീർച്ചയായും. മലയാളത്തിൽ സംസാരിക്കുന്നത് വലിയൊരു അപരാധമായി മാറിയോ കേരളത്തിൽ? വേറെ എവിടെയല്ല, കേരളത്തിൽ മലയാളത്തിൽ സംസാരിക്കുന്നത് വലിയ. പണ്ട് കോഴിക്കോട് ഒരു കുട്ടി ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് മീഡിയം സ്കൂളിൽ വെച്ച് മലയാളത്തിൽ സംസാരിച്ചപ്പോൾ ആ കുട്ടിയുടെ തല മുട്ടയടിച്ചു വിട്ടിയ ചരിത്രമൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. എന്നെ ഒന്നും ചെയ്യരുത് കേട്ടോ, മലയാളം സംസാരിച്ചിട്ട്. അപ്പോൾ നമുക്ക് പ്രകൃതിയിൽ നിന്ന് തന്നെ തുടങ്ങാം. As I mentioned yesterday, nature is the greatest laboratory. If I ask you a question, who was the first scientist of the world? Can you answer this question? Who was the first scientist of the world? ഞാൻ കുട്ടിയോട് ചോദിക്കുമ്പോൾ അവർ ചിലപ്പോൾ ഗലീലിയോ ആണെന്ന് പറയും, ചിലർ ആര്യഭട്ടനാണെന്ന് പറയും, ചിലർ പൈത്തഗോറസ് ആണെന്ന് പറയും. പക്ഷേ ഉത്തരം the first thinking person, whosoever that was, even the Homo sapien, if he had a thinking faculty, he was the first scientist. The reason is, there was a well-equipped laboratory in front of him on earth. That was nature. Because the nature that we had, it was not a static nature. The nature was always dynamic. There were movements. So, നമ്മുടെ പിന്നെ എന്താ പറയാ, ഈ ആദിയിൽ വചനമുണ്ടായി എന്നൊക്കെ പറയാം. ആദിയിൽ വചനമുണ്ടായി, വചനം ദൈവമായി എന്നൊക്കെ പണ്ട് വയലാർ രാമവർമ്മ എഴുതിയിട്ട്. ഇൻസിഡന്റ്ലി ഞാൻ വയലാർ രാമവർമ്മയെ കൂടെ ഉദ്ധരിക്കും കേട്ടോ. ആരാണ് വയലാർ രാമവർമ്മ എന്ന് അറിയാമോ? അപ്പൊ പിന്നെ ആദിയിൽ വചനമുണ്ടായി, വചനം ദൈവമുണ്ടായി എന്നൊക്കെ പറയാറുണ്ട്. ഞാൻ പറയാറുണ്ട്, ആദിയിൽ വചനമുണ്ടായി, വചനത്തോടൊപ്പം ചലനവും ഉണ്ടായി. കാരണം the nature that was available as the well-equipped laboratory for the human mind was a dynamic nature. There were moments. So the first scientist, whosoever that was, used to look at nature and wonder about the whys, hows, whats. Okay, why it is becoming, bright sometime, it becomes day sometime, but after some time it becomes dark again. Why it is happening? Why it is moving from one place to the other? Why the flower sometimes, why the flower is falling down in the evening? Or why sometimes it is very cool, but why sometimes it is very hot? Why sometimes a sweet smell is coming? Why sometimes the smell is so irritating? So all these reasons he used to wonder, and the science started developing from that stage. So with this thinking faculty arose to different heights, the science started developing. Although there were not written evidences of whatever they have discovered, but there was certainly science. For example, ഞങ്ങളുടെ പഠിക്കുന്ന സമയത്ത് ഞങ്ങളുടെ അധ്യാപകം പറയാറുണ്ട്, മനുഷ്യര് ഭക്ഷണം പാകം കഴിക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങിയില്ലെങ്കിൽ അതിന്റെ കഥ പറയാറുണ്ട്. ഒരിക്കൽ രണ്ട് സഹോദരന്മാർ തമ്മിൽ അടി ചെയ്യുക. അപ്പോ ഒരു സഹോദരൻ ഒരു വലിയൊരു കല്ലെടുത്തിട്ട് മറ്റേ സഹോദരൻ എറിയുക. അവനെ കൊണ്ട് തെറ്റിമായി, ഈ കല്ല് പോയി ഇവിടുത്തെ വേറെ കല്ലാണ്. ഈ കല്ല് പിന്നെ രണ്ട് കല്ലുകൾ കൂട്ടി ഒരു സ്ഥലത്ത് തീയിട്ടായി, അടുത്തുള്ള ഉണങ്ങിയ ഇലകൾക്ക് തീ പിടിച്ചു. അപ്പോ ഈ തീയുടെ ആ ഒരു പിന്നെ വളരെ നല്ല മനോഹരമായ ഒരു ഭംഗിയും അതിന്റെ ആ നിറമൊക്കെ കണ്ട സമയത്ത് ഒരു പന്നിക്കുട്ടി അതിലേക്ക് ഓടിച്ചത്. പന്നിക്കുട്ടിക്ക് അറിയില്ല ഇത് തീയാണെന്നുള്ള കാര്യം. പന്നിക്കുട്ടി ഓടിയ സമയത്ത് ഈ പന്നിക്കുട്ടി ആ തീയിൽ വെച്ചു. വെച്ച സമയത്ത് ഈ പന്നിക്കുട്ടിയെ താലോടിച്ച് വളർത്തുന്ന ഈ ഒരു സഹോദരൻ പോയിട്ട് പന്നിക്കുട്ടിയെ പിടിച്ചു. അപ്പൊ കൈ നല്ലവണ്ണം പൊട്ടി, കൈ ഉടനെ വായയിൽ വെച്ചു. കൈ പൊടി കഴിഞ്ഞ നമ്മുടെ വായലല്ലേ വെക്ക്, വായല വെച്ചിട്ട് പന്നി മാംസത്തിൽ നല്ല സ്വാദുണ്ടായി. അങ്ങനെയാണ് മനുഷ്യൻ ഭക്ഷണം പാകം ചെയ്ത് കഴിക്കാൻ തുടങ്ങിയത് ഒരു പഴയൊരു കഥ കഴിഞ്ഞു. So you see, with the new inventions, with the new discoveries, people started building up and they started developing. They started adding one more dimension to their life. If something new is coming, then of course that is always come. If you can make your life become more comfortable, then people will certainly go behind it. So by looking at the whys, whats, hows, etc. of nature, man realized, man or woman, okay, when they say man, I include everybody. So man realized that if he can actually be in harmony with the nature, and if he can actually get lessons from nature, and if he can give something back to nature, then he will certainly have a better life. And this is how science started evolving. But when I speak about the nature, I should also tell you something else. Because if I ask you a question, state whether true or false, nature has given us everything. Is it true or false? Obviously, some of you will say it is true, because nature indeed has given us everything. But some of you may say that no, nature has not given us everything. What is true is, nature has given us everything, but not in a form directly conceivable by us. അതിനും ഒരു പഴയൊരു കഥയുണ്ട്. പണ്ട് പിന്നെ ഈ നെൽക്കതിരുടെ വില പിന്നെ അരിയാണൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടാവുക. അന്ന് അരിക്കതിര നെല്ല് കണ്ടിട്ടുണ്ടോ? അപ്പൊ അതില് പിന്നെ ഈ പിന്നെ അരിയുടെ മുകളിലുള്ള ആവരണമുണ്ട്, ചുളി എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. ചുളി എന്നൊക്കെ പറയുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ പണ്ട് അരിക്കതിരാണ് ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നത്. അപ്പൊ ഒരിക്കൽ ഒരു അമ്മ ദൈവത്തിന് ഒരു ശാപം കൊടുത്തു. അതായത് ഈ ദൈവം എത്ര കഠിന ഹൃദയനാണ്, അരിക്ക് പകരം ചോറ് തന്നെ അതിന് വിളഞ്ഞിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ നേരെ അർത്ഥം കൊണ്ട് കഴിച്ചാൽ മതി. കാരണം ഈ സ്ത്രീയാണ് എപ്പോഴും ഈ അരി കഴുകി പാകം ചെയ്ത് ചോറാക്കി കൊടുക്കുന്നതിന്റെ ജോലിയ സ്ത്രീക്കായിരുന്നു. അപ്പൊ സ്ത്രീ ദൈവത്തിന് ശപിച്ചു, എനിക്ക് എന്റെ ഇത്ര വിവരം ഇല്ലാതായപ്പോഴത് ഇതിലെ ചോറ് തന്നെ വഴിയിച്ചു. അപ്പൊ ഈ ദൈവം എന്ന് പറയുന്നതാണ് എപ്പോഴും കുറച്ച് വികൃതിയാണ്. അപ്പൊ എന്ത് ചെയ്തു, അടുത്ത വർഷം മുതൽ ഈ അരിക്ക് മുകളിൽ ഒരു ആവരണം കൂടി കൊടുത്തു. അങ്ങനെ ഈ സ്ത്രീക്ക് ജോലി കൂടി കൊടുത്തു. ഞാനത് പറയാൻ കാരണം, നേച്ചർ ഹാസ് ഗിവൺ us food, but not in a form directly conceived by us. So for that you need science and technology, because how to convert the paddy grain from a form separated by nature to a form conceivable by us. There you need science and there you need technology. So in order to understand nature, it is not sufficient that we just look at nature, we just to observe what is happening. It is also necessary to develop new methods of observing nature. So that is how science got a stimulation, how science originated from a few to many other things. So this is a motivating spirit, because in order to understand what exactly